Good morning, everyone. So I was going to put out a video today talking about my experiences that I've had as a Lyft driver. So recently I put out a video talking about the ups and the downs of being Amazon DSP, because that's what I'm currently doing. I've done a lot of different rideshare delivery and gig economy apps, including Lyft. I drove for Lyft back in 2018, and I still would be considered on the app. It shows right here that I'm a 5-star driver with approximately 3,500 drives. I drove in multiple cities, primarily Boston, but also quite a few rides in Austin, Texas, and I even drove a bit in Jackson, Wyoming. So to summarize, I personally do not feel that it is worth it to be a Lyft driver. Now, I will say this. I'm not trying to just put out just a full-on negative bashing session for Lyft. I'm trying to give an honest review based on my experiences, and I will break that down. And I'm also going to try to be as unbiased as I possibly can. You know, I am biased because it's my own personal experiences and I have my own biases. And take everything I say with a grain of salt, because you might be a Lyft driver and you might disagree with what I'm saying. You might have different experiences. You might have driven in different cities that gave you better experiences, or you might have friends that have different experiences. So just keep that in mind. These are my experiences, and of course I'm biased. I will put out different positive aspects about being a Lyft driver as well, and I'll try to be as fair and as impartial as I can. So let's dig right into it. All right, so what are some of the positive things? I'll start with those first, just because honestly, my review is going to be a bit more on the negative side, but I will start off with a couple of positive things, just so it's not completely negative towards Lyft. So there are definitely some positive aspects of being a Lyft driver, for sure. For one, you get to meet a lot of different people, so I thought that was cool. When I first started driving for Lyft back in 2017, 2018, I'd say that I was quite a bit more shy, and after about a year and a half of driving people, you get definitely a lot of experiences talking to all sorts of different people. Now, some of those people are not super nice, but I'd say generally speaking, most people are still fairly nice. For the most part, it depends where you drive, but just the experience of meeting so many different people is kind of cool. Another benefit is, as you can probably imagine, you do get to work on your own time. So if you're just like super tired one day, don't want to work, you don't turn on the app, you don't work. Gives you that choice. Of course, you're not going to make money in that case. The other thing is, if you're out and you're just driving for a while and you're just super exhausted, like, you can turn off the app, you can take a break, you can do all those different things. So you're working for yourself. So that would be another positive, again, is working for yourself, having the independence to choose when you can work, when you cannot, similar to other delivery, rideshare, gig economy apps. So that's another positive. I guess another positive there, kind of similar, but you can choose where you work, not just when. Like, I did Lyft primarily in Boston because that's where I was living at the time. I also did it when I was living down in Austin, and I was working a job in Jackson, Wyoming back in 2019, and I decided to do Lyft part-time, and you can choose whether you're full-time or part-time. So those are kind of my positives. I'm sorry that it's a little bit short. But just off the top of my head, those are a few positive things. Overall, like I said, I do not personally recommend Lyft as a full-time job or really even part-time, in my opinion. And here's why. So with Lyft, when I started off, and I remember hearing this for sure, but I remember hearing, there's some crazy things that can happen as a Lyft driver. You probably want to get a dash cam. And I kind of just ignored those, because at the time I was just all about trying to do my own thing. I had just gotten out of the military, where I had this super stable, career, and everything was so regimented. So I started doing photography and some other things, and wanted to work for myself. So being like a Lyft or an Uber driver, talking about Lyft specifically because I drove for Lyft a bit more, but Uber we could lump right in there as well. And I did drive for Uber as well. I wanted to have that experience of just working for myself, working on my own time. So I kind of ignored the different warnings that people would say, hey, you're going to experience some crazy things. You might experience some people puking in the back of your car. You might experience, drunk people or combative people. And yes, I absolutely experienced all of those things in ways that I wish that I could describe to you. I'll try to describe some of them. I wish that I'd gotten a dash cam back in the day, but I kind of just ignored it. And I remember thinking about it, but I just didn't really want to spend the money on it. And I'm telling you right now, I wish I had invested in a little dash cam, because some of the experiences that I had were just so outrageous. And that's, like I said, definitely in line with me talking about why is it a negative thing. I mean, I experienced anything you can possibly imagine. I did a lot of late night Lyft driving in Boston where I experienced lots of drunk people. And I'm sure on the flip side, people could say that, oh, you can just drive during the day. And that's true. You can definitely choose to drive during the day and avoid certainly a lot of the drunk people. But in my opinion, from my own experiences, that still comes with a lot of negatives, because I did test to see, can I try to have more peaceful and less drunk experiences if I just drive during the day? And that is, primarily true. But on the flip side, when you decide to do that, you pretty much have to drive during the peak hours for traffic, at least if you're trying to make money. I mean, if you don't drive either at the peak hours of like going into the city when people are, drunk and need to get picked up from the bars, then if you really want to make money, you have to choose the other peak times to drive, which would be like the early morning and the late afternoon rush hour times in the city. And if you don't do that and you're just doing like residential drives, I've definitely done that before as well. And that could be a way to avoid a lot of the traffic and a lot of the drunk and unhappy and just really, really awful customers. But in my experiences, you don't make as much money doing that. Now, again, you might know people, or you might be someone that makes plenty of money as a residential Lyft driver, and you've been able to do well without any of the frustrations of the drunk people that I'm talking about. But my own experience is that that's hard to make money. So I personally don't recommend it for that reason. You get combative people, you get lots of drunk people. I've had people puke in my car. I've had people, toss all their disgusting like KFC and McDonald's foods all over the back. I've had people, any food items that you can possibly think of with ketchup and mustard and barbecue sauce, all that stuff all over the back seats. There is ways that you can, if that happens, that the customer has to pay for that, but it just totally destroys your night. Like the times that happened, I mean, I had to go to Walmart and purchase a bunch of cleaning supplies, and it was just an absolute mess. So even though that ended up getting paid back, it was super frustrating. And the times that happened, you would not get paid enough money to cover for the damages. Okay, I'll take that back. You might get enough money to cover for the damages, but you don't get enough money to make up for what you would have made for that night. So it still destroys your night. You're probably going to get enough of a paycheck from Lyft to be like, okay, so this person made you purchase a bunch of cleaning supplies to either clean up puke or, food items or different things all over your seat, which I've had to do both of that. So you do get enough money for that. But if you were planning to have like a late night drive-in and try to make a bunch of money, it's not going to cover that much. So it definitely destroys your night. Okay, so there's that. Like I said, combative customers. I've dealt with customers, riders or whatever that are fighting in the back of the car. I've dealt with riders that are so drunk that they are literally trying to fight you in the back seat. And I've literally had to pull over and pretty much demand people out of my car. There's times where I call the police. I mean, like, it gets bad. I'm just telling you right now. So I'll leave it at that for now. And I think what I'll do is I'll make another video later where I'm just specifically talking about angry, drunk, and really bad Lyft riders. But I'll just leave it at that for now, because I want to move on to the other downside. A big downside of driving for Lyft is that you have to pay back taxes. So you're treated as an independent contractor, and at the end of the day, or at the end of the year, you have to pay back taxes. And that's, of course, similar to pretty much any independent contractor work. So this is not exclusive to Lyft. I mean, that would be like if you work for DoorDash or Grubhub or even any other type of independent contractor work. But I would say that is a downside, because I think a lot of people, including myself, would enter a job like Lyft and you kind of feel like you're making a lot of money. And if you don't plan well, by the end of the year, you end up having to pay back thousands of dollars. And that was the case for me. And again, you might be like, well, you're just stupid and you didn't budget properly. And that's true. But I'm just telling you that I think if you're not careful, you might be like me, possibly, and enter a job like Lyft thinking that you're making a lot of money. And if you're not smart with budgeting, which I was not, it will be a big shocker at the end of the year. So that's another downside. Additionally, kind of on the same line of thought, is paying back all of the maintenance fees, all of the different things. When I was driving for Lyft, again, people warned me about this. My own dad warned me about this, and I was not really smart with it. And I did have to pay back so many different things in terms of, like, you know, tire replacements, brake replacements, anything you can possibly think of for the car as far as maintenance, spark plugs, all those different things. They cost so much money. And it's just one of those things that, like, if you're not really thinking about it, like, it seems like you're making money when you're driving in the city, and you might get some tips some nights if you have nice customers. That doesn't happen as often as you would like, and I'll talk more about that in a minute. But you might think you're making money because Lyft will put on like the surges where they're like, oh, you're gonna make this, you're gonna make that, and you might feel like you're making a lot. And I'm just telling you that you end up spending so much money on car maintenance in a job like Lyft or Uber. And then gas, huge thing. I mean, I was driving a Toyota RAV4. That Toyota RAV4 got destroyed, not from driving Lyft, but it was actually from driving DoorDash. I'll make a whole nother video about that because that was crazy. But when I was driving for Lyft in 2018 and 2019 primarily, I was driving in a Toyota RAV4, which does okay on gas. It's not nearly as good as some of the other like hybrid cars, or I've had Toyota Corollas in the past. Those do much better. But regardless, you pay a lot for gas, especially depending on where you are. Massachusetts gas isn't nearly as bad as like California or Seattle, but still not cheap, and you're paying for that. So it's not like right now where I'm working for Amazon DSP and I just commute a short drive to the warehouse, and then I drive the company cars, company trucks. You know, you're paying into all of that. So to summarize again, taxes, car maintenance, gas, you're paying for all those different things and dealing with all the different frustrations of the riders. Overall, my grand summary, I do not recommend Lyft as a job. I was doing it full time. You know, again, you know, maybe had I done it a bit more part time or been a bit more strategic, there might be ways where it might be, you know, a bit more worth it. But I personally do. Oh, actually, I do have one more big one, and this is a huge one for me. I personally do not like sitting in a car for so much time. It is very, very exhausting physically and mentally demanding, and it actually can hurt your back quite a bit. There were multiple times where I experienced quite a bit of back pain from the amount of just sitting in one place. And of course, you know, someone might come in and say, well, you need to take more breaks or you need to pull over more. I'm just telling you right now from my experience, when I was trying to work hard to actually make money and target the times where you make quite a bit of money in Lyft, whether it is the peak times during the day or the peak times at night, you are going ride for ride. And if you're really taking a lot of breaks, I'm just telling you right now, you're probably not making a lot of money. So that is another downside, is just sitting in one place, not being able to exercise, not being able to walk. Like I do Amazon DSP right now. I'm walking all the time. I'm getting out of the vehicle. Now that can definitely be frustrating as well, but you're at least exercising and you're not just sitting in one place, which is really bad for your back. So again, overall, I do not recommend Lyft or Uber as a full-time job, despite the fact that there were some positives that I mentioned. And just take this all with a grain of salt. I'm not trying to bash the company. I'm trying to give my fair and as impartial and fair reasoning and review as I can. So I hope you enjoyed this video, and if you want any more reviews on different types of jobs, I have had a lot of different jobs. I've worked as an Army officer, I've worked for the National Park Service, I've worked for different resorts, I've worked as a photographer, I worked for this awesome gym in Austin, Texas, the Jungle Movement Academy. I've worked as a bouncer. So I've had a lot of different jobs and a lot of different experiences, and thought that I would talk a little bit about that. So anyways, if you enjoy that stuff, please subscribe, and I'll be putting out a lot of great videos.